first day of the week, at early dawn, the women came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. Wait a minute. This cannot be right. Cannot be right. My senses are not operating correctly, and I must be missing something because, it's just not right. There's something here, I just haven't seen it yet. I just haven't seen it yet. I know there has to be a simple explanation because things cannot be as they appear at this moment. I left early from the Christmas concert alone at the Grand Theater. I went out alone to the parking lot so I could have the car running and heated up by the time my wife got in. But when I arrived at the space where I remembered parking, what to my wondering eyes should appear but, well, nothing. Nothing. A bare patch of asphalt between 2 lines. In my perplexity, a certain numbness descended on me with a flood of these kinds of thoughts. I can't trust my eyes to be telling the truth. Better back up and look again. Surely the car will appear. Or, wait, maybe I parked 1 row over, and I better check that row. No such luck. Okay, I'll just close my eyes real tight, think the right things real hard, and then when I open them, the car will be there. But nope, still a bare patch of pavement. Then I launched into self-rebuke mode. You idiot! What are you, some kind of superstitious bimbo? What? Our nice Honda Accord, our emerald green Honda Accord, simply was not going to appear. The police officer who took the stolen car report cheerily reminded us Honda Accords are the #1 target vehicle for auto thieves. It struck again. It took a while for the reality to sink in, because when you find yourself in that perplexed frame of mind, you're overcome with a sense of unreality. There's something surreal about this. It's not real. It can't be happening. It's a sense of unreality, and therefore unbelief. I don't believe what I'm seeing, or maybe what I'm not seeing, as the case may be. Can't be real. This happens to other people, not me. I mean, the earth is off its axis. There has to be a simple explanation. Now, that's where the women found themselves in the early dawn that Sunday morning. Perplexed is the exact word our gospel reading from Luke uses. They were perplexed. Why? Well, I figure they had very much the same experience I had with my missing car. They arrived to carry out their custom of honoring the body of their beloved lost one by laying spices on it. And, well, there's the tomb, but inside where the body should be is nothing. Nothing. Oh, an empty slab and maybe a disheveled grave cloth or two, but no body. They're numb with shock, disbelieving, perplexed. I bet we've all had these times, these I can't believe my eyes moments in life. I saw some heads nodding when I was telling that little story. We've all had these times. This can't be real. This can't be true. This can't be right. Dear friends of ours had their 16-year-old son and brother put a rifle to his head and take his life. Shock, disbelief when they found the body. This can't be happening. There must be a simple explanation somewhere. But another friend of ours tells us a woman in her church had her husband, Christian husband, leave her for another woman because, quote, God wants me to be happy. Yeah, I want to ask, well, what kind of happiness? On whose terms? And who do you have to step on to get it? The abandoned wife has kids to support and no job skills. Has to go back to school, start life all over. Shock, disbelief when this news comes. This can't be happening. That's where the women were at the tomb that morning. That's where they were. The body's gone. There simply must be a simple explanation. So, God sends them a little help. These two men in dazzling clothes had to be way out of the ordinary, rather dramatically daunting, because, I mean, they're probably some kind of godlike beings, it looked like, judging from the women's response. Falling prostrate on their faces in terror. These light-bathed men open their mouths to speak, and what comes out is indeed a simple explanation, but not the kind of simple that they were looking for. They're looking for the simple that seems ordinary to life in this world. You know, something like, well, Joseph, the property owner, temporarily moved the body to do some cleaning of the tomb. Okay, yeah. Or maybe the Roman guard was ordered to take it to the coroner for a full autopsy or something like that. So it's missing temporarily. Simple explanation. Explanations that come out of ordinary life, the way it's lived in this world as we understand it. No, that's not what these guys tell them. These guys seem to me to adopt a tone that's almost snide. Kind of like this. Well, of course he's not here. I mean, duh. Why do you think you'll find him hanging around the place for corpses when he's perfectly alive? Risen like he said he would be. It's all straightforward, quite simple. Now, in the domain of reality, the order of life native to these two dazzling messengers, it's very simple indeed. They have no problem with it. Where they come from, this kind of thing is simple. But to us, in our perplexity and shock, our I can't believe my eyes moments, this simple explanation does not come easy. For the women, the fog finally lifts. And our text says, then they remembered his words. Then they remembered his words. Seems to me the subtext is, then they finally got it, that his words were more than just words, just babble. They realized they should have taken these words seriously when he said them. Which is to say, they finally believed him. Finally. So these women, the first witnesses to the resurrection of Jesus the Christ, excitedly bring the news to the apostles and some other Jesus followers with them. But, our text says, but these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. So here's the other kind of disbelief we find happening in this little story. It's two kinds of disbelief. This is the second one. It comes not out of perplexity, but out of pride. What? Buy into the words of this gaggle of gossiping, fickle women with their old wives' tales? What? Expect me to believe that? Oh, come on. Not me, thank you very much. I just wonder how often we miss the greatest and best news in the world because we dismiss it, because we diss the messengers. We don't shoot the messenger, we just disrespect them, dismiss them. We might as well have shot them. We don't believe what they said. I wonder how many people out there hear the words of Jesus and the words about Jesus rising from the grave to conquer sin, oppression, and death, to vanquish the dominion of evil in our world, and it all seems to them just an idle tale. An idle tale. Yeah. One of those great religious myths. Let me share a first-hand testimony I heard about the power of the risen Christ in our world today. A Christian missionary named Don Richardson lived and worked among the Sawi tribe in Papua New Guinea during the last half of the 20th century, for decades. Gave his life to being with these people, learning their ways, their language, their customs, their folk tales, their habits. Many of them became Christians in the tribe. He wrote about some of his experiences in the book Peace Child. Some of you may have read it. At a Salt Lake Theological Seminary conference one time, we flew him in to speak to us. And I got the privilege of sitting at his table over lunch, where he told this unforgettable story. Now, before I launch into the story, you should know something about Don Richardson. So maybe you can consider the credibility of the source. Don Richardson, we found out, is not a way-out, flaming Pentecostal or some kind of charismaniac. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. He's a very traditional, very conservative, Baptistic Christian minister with a kind of a literalist take on the Bible. Very conservative. He's not one that's given to weird, spectacular stories and idle tales, puffed up myths. No, he's not that way at all. So, having said that, here's the story he told at lunch to us, sitting at the table, about a family of Sawi Christians who were impassioned about all their family members coming to know Jesus personally in saving faith, as they themselves had done. The man of the household had an uncle who essentially we would know as the village drunk. And this man steadfastly refused to bow the knee to Christ. Suddenly one day the uncle came down with a terrible illness, and within hours he was dead. Richardson says he watched as this family carried the body of this man out into the village, placed him in the middle of the square on a blanket on the ground, circled around him on their knees, and they began to beg, storm, and plead before the throne of God for this man's life to be restored so he would not pass into a Christless eternity and be lost forever from the family. They raised their voices with loud, impassioned cries and shameless weeping as they prayed. Don never saw passion like this. This went on for 45 minutes straight. Then, at the end of 45 minutes, from the ground came the sound of coughing. The dead man's limbs began to move, and his eyes opened. God had honored the family's pleas and brought him back. Immediately, his nephew was in the man's face, bent over him, inches from his nose, barking these words to this resuscitated uncle: Jesus Christ has given your life back to you. Now it's time for you to give your life to him. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. The man knew it came from love. And at that urging, this lost man bent his will in repentant faith and entered God's kingdom, along with his other family members. Now, the big point in sharing this story should be obvious. That miracle of a drunkard's resurrection could only take place because of the miracle of the former resurrection on what we now call the first Easter Sunday, the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. The one miracle, Jesus coming back from the grave, conquering death, changes everything about what can be normal, what can be the simple truth of what happens in our world. It's not always just the ordinary things. There's more to life. Finally, the text ends on a bright note. Peter now, he's known for his impulsiveness, isn't he? If you know anything about Peter, he's an impulsive guy. This time it does him credit. It does him a favor. He at least believes the women enough to impulsively act to check out their story. He runs to the tomb. He sees the linen cloths where the body of Jesus isn't. And he goes home. The text says, he goes home amazed at what had happened. Amazed at what had happened. I'm praying we all go home today amazed like Peter. Don't ever let this most powerful, astonishing story in history get reduced to a mind-numbing piece of creed or an idle tale. Don't let it happen. The Lord is risen.